Alright, welcome back. It's been a while since we talked, but there's something I just have to talk about and show you guys because it's been grinding my gears. I apologize if I seem a little bit sweaty. It's currently 35 degrees where I live, so it's Celsius. But today I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of an update on TDU Solar Crown. Now, if you remember, the game did not launch in a great state. I did make a video on the main channel about this. And yeah, to say the least, it was probably the single most disappointing release of that year, which is saying something because there were quite a few. But the crazy thing about the launch of this game and all the other racing games that released in that time is that it was pretty much the only one that just didn't work, at least at first. And over time, they did try to make amends a little bit. They updated the game with various content, put new stuff in. Some of it actually good stuff. That I couldn't help but mock. Like at one point I tried my best to find it, but I couldn't. But I vividly remember it took them several months, I think almost a year, to implement basic stuff like difficulty options and the ability to restart a race. Like super basic things that have been in racing games since the 90s or 80s. And they're still trying to deliver on like just super basic, I wouldn't even call it features, functions. But I mean, okay, it's been a while, and I decided to just kind of take a peek what they're currently working on. So they are currently up to Season 4 for TDU Solar Crown. Figured, hey, maybe they are finally making some changes to their priorities, what they're actually focusing on and whatnot. So I decided to have a short read, and I don't think they learned anything. Okay, so let's just read this together. And get into it. So I'm just gonna skip all of this. I'm just gonna skip straight to the meat here. Season 4 for TDU Solar Crown will be launching in the second half of July. This will feature the casino, new cars, new quality of life improvements, and more. Okay, none of this is actually new stuff. This is literally all stuff from the previous game. I just want to point that out. Outside of like new cars, obviously. Quality of life improvements are always nice to have there, but the casino is literally just like, this was like something really cool that TDU 2 had, but it was something cool on top of a game that was already cool enough, if that makes sense. Like, TDU 2 wasn't cool because of the casino. It was cool because it was decent and had a casino. Like, it wasn't what made that game good in the first place. It's just like something nice on top of everything else. They're teasing some other stuff here that isn't really relevant, so we're just gonna move on right here. And this is where, like, the big one is. In big, bold letters, offline mode topic. And this is what drove me up the freaking wall. Okay, so we're just gonna read this together. As we said before, a big part of improving Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown is making sure that we take the community's feedback. Okay. Didn't show so far, but fine. Or at least only in parts. Offline has been a topic we have seen mentioned often, and it's something we briefly discuss in the Dev Diary too, but we want to let you know what our plans are for the game's offline abilities sooner than later. So let's discuss this now. I'm just gonna stop you here. Offline has not been a topic that has been mentioned often. It has been mentioned all the time, and it has been mentioned by far the most. I think currently the main reason for most people who aren't playing this game, why they're not playing it is because it doesn't have an offline mode. So a lot of people just don't see the reason to even play this. I'll talk more about this in a bit. Let's just finish reading this excerpt here. Currently, TDU Solar Crown is an online-focused live service game, and a lot of the game's features are associated with the game's networking. That said, to disassociate the game's features from the networking system to bring a fully offline experience requires an extensive amount of development, which would take... Actually, I'm gonna stop there. I totally understand this, by the way. Like, I want to show at least like some sympathy. I am not the game developer, but I can imagine that if you tie everything that the game has, like progression, currency, like just the basic functionalities of a game to an online connection, it's gonna be hard to sever this. I have understanding for this, but not sympathy. I should reword this. Because this is just the bed you kind of shit yourself, basically. This is just kind of the shit sandwich you made for yourself. This is why an always online connection is a bad idea, because it will be incredibly hard to like undo these things, so to say, to like sever everything. Especially the more you incorporate the always online functionality, the harder it is to kind of like go back on it. So while I understand this, I have very little sympathy because this is just the shit sandwich you made for yourself. But here's the kicker. This is where things started to really like drive me up the wall. I'm just gonna continue from the sentence here, which would take away from the other improvements and features of TDU Solar Crown. So they're saying like, hey, we understand this is important. It's been like the number 1 thing. Oh, they don't even say this outright. I'm saying this, but this has been the number 1 thing that people have been mentioning and asking about since the game came out. And they're saying it would be important and it's difficult. And working on this would take away work that they could put in somewhere else. This isn't us saying offline isn't important, but it's us saying that we need to work on improving the game and its TDU DNA so that when offline is something we can bring to the table, the game has an incredible offline experience to offer. I'm just gonna stop you right there. So what they're basically saying is, hey, we care about offline and aka the number 1 thing you guys care about, but we don't quite care about it enough. We'd rather have all this other garbage added to the game before we add the offline mode. Like, it is actually their last priority. Like this, they're not outright saying this, but this is basically what they're saying, right? If they're gonna come out and say, hey, we wanna do this, and that instead, and improve the TDU DNA, as they say it, which is funny to say because the TDU DNA is basically admitting that the game has no TDU DNA. And it's something that they have to improve on, which is incredibly hilarious. But this is crazy, and I think this shows that they don't actually understand why no one is playing the game. People aren't playing the game because there is no casino or because there's certain cars missing. People generally, I don't think, care too much about this. Obviously, it's important that they improve the core experience. I'm not saying that this isn't important. Even with an offline experience, the game would still be kind of underwhelming. But them not making the offline mode the number 1 priority is so unbelievably tone deaf and shows that they absolutely do not understand what went wrong with their game. They do not understand why people don't play their game. They do not understand why they lost so many players. They do not understand why they have such a poor reputation. It's just complete tone deafness. So just gonna continue here. We already started this by bringing solo mode to races. Crazy thing to mention first, by the way. Crazy thing to mention first. Solo races, that's crazy, dude. Like, Jesus Christ, man. Navigation races, delivery contracts, by the way, also just a feature from TDU 2, even the first TDU, basic stuff. Casino slot machines, yay. And so much more, some of which you will learn about in the blah, blah, blah. Okay. But this is insane. Like, the fact that they are putting all of these things first, and then basically, like, what they're saying is, we'll do the offline mode last. We'll have our, like, 4 years or whatever, 3 or 4 years of updates, and then we'll give you the offline mode. If we still feel like it. If there's still budget there for it. This should be the number 1 priority. I don't know why they don't understand this. This should be the number 1 thing they're working on right now. This is something they should have worked on as soon as the game came out, dude. I don't know why they are so hell-bent on doing literally anything else. Anything else. Except the offline mode. And they want this to come last. When the game is already on its way out, when it has far past its relevancy, when it's so past relevant that no one actually gives a damn anymore. Like, this should be the first thing they're working on, not the last. Let's continue the post for now. Another reason why players mention offline is because we encountered many server problems from launch. This is underselling what happened so hard. So, as a reminder, back then, actually I think still today, you can buy a premium version of TDU Solar Crown. You can see this right here, TDU Solar Crown Gold Edition. I'm sorry, this is a little bit smaller. I'm on the main Steam client here. This comes with basically all the DLC, but back then it also came with, I think, like 3 days early access. It might have been a little bit more. And what they're referring to here is that you weren't actually able to play the game at all in that early access phase. So you were paying a premium, an extra, and you weren't even able to play the game in that time. Like, imagine a lot of people that bought this gold edition also bought it for the early access so they could actually play the game early. And they weren't able to because the servers were not able to even accommodate for the small fraction of the player base that bought the gold edition. That's how bad the servers were at the time, that even a small subset of the players were not able to get into the game and get what they paid for, which was the early access phase. So if you bought this version in order to play the game early, you effectively got scammed. And guess what could have avoided all of this? If the game was just available offline, if there wasn't a stupid server check, if there wasn't a stupid check that made sure that you had to get into a server to play the game, if that didn't exist, everyone would have been able to play the game. I mean, it would have still been disappointing. It still would have been a shell of its former self. But at least people would have been able to play this game and actually got some value out of the gold edition that they paid for, which they didn't. So this is like underselling. To say there were many server problems is underselling it. There weren't many server problems. The servers weren't working at all, dude. And that's the problem with this always online. It's not just that the game is always online, it's that the entire server structure of the game is garbage. Because let me remind you, this game not only doesn't have crossplay, so if you have friends on like PlayStation or Xbox, but you're on PC, you cannot play with them. You can just straight up not play with them, or anyone for that matter. So the game does not have crossplay in the year of our Lord 2025, which is unbelievable. Which is especially important for racing games that traditionally have like smaller audiences or smaller player counts, especially more towards consoles. Like people don't actually play racing games all that much on PC, except it's a sim, except in cases where it's a sim. So crossplay is already incredibly important if you want to have an active online community, even more so for what they're trying to do, which is make a live service. But it's not only that. It's not only that the game isn't crossplay, it's also region locked. So, for example, in my case, since I'm in Germany and I'm on PC, that means I can only play with players in Germany on PC, which is basically nobody, okay? So there's like an additional region lock on top of the cross-platform restriction, or like the lack of crossplay rather, which makes it actually impossible to get any full lobbies or any full servers. Like if you actually played this game, like I watch Black Panther play this game occasionally whenever he does a video on this. And one thing he's showing all the fucking time is how there is, like if you try to queue up for a race, no one will join. And this is what makes me question why they are putting so much focus on literally anything else. Why they're outright coming out and saying, yeah, actually, we'd rather add more garbage features to our dying live service game. Who's gonna play this? Who's gonna get into any lobbies or games or anything? No one's gonna be able to see any of it if there's no players that are able to get into the same server. And that is what makes this so unbelievable and such a waste of resources and time. This is why they need to put the offline mode first. And in fact, the servers are still having issues to this day. So this was like around a year ago where they're still having server and connection issues in their game. Like they didn't even solve this. And this was, I think, like 2 years after launch, a year and a half. And they're still having issues with this constantly. So I just have to ask what the point is to put every single thing first that still requires an online connection to even interact with it when there's still issues present pretty much to this day. And on top of that, once again, like I don't think anyone will even interact with this. Like these are the current player counts for TDU Solar Crown on Steam. Once again, Steam is the smallest fraction of the player base by far. You will have way more players on Xbox and especially PlayStation. But this is how things are looking, and you can see that even new updates didn't bring new players in. Like this was when an update dropped. They couldn't even get 1,000 players on Steam. And I assume this was like the last major update here on March 19th. No one is playing this, so I just have to ask, who are they making these updates for at this point? A lot of people are not playing the game mainly because of the server connection. There's a lot of people, and this is something that I feel like so many massive AAA developers don't understand. There's so many people out there who either live in areas that have a bad internet coverage, like just a bad internet in general, or have data caps and as such are not interested in playing always online because it will just drain their entire data capacity. So there's just like a lot of people that are literally just not able to be able to play an always online game is a privilege. You have to live in a privileged area and you have to be financially privileged to even play this or to even play anything that's always online. And this is the reason, like this is the reason why the player counts are so low. Like you can see 5,000 players at launch, which to be honest isn't much either, but the drop-off is crazy here. Now let me compare this to Tokyo Extreme Racer, which still has more players. Tokyo Extreme Racer has not gotten any major content update since it came out, yet it still manages to maintain a higher player count. This game is already like well over half a year old, has not gotten any content. In fact, it only has like around like I think a quarter of its content currently available. It only got like some quality of life updates over time, but nothing crazy. Tell me, how is this single player game that's in early access and only has a quarter of its content available, how is this game getting more players than this presumed live service? And this is why I think TDU Solar Crown is doomed, and this is why I don't understand why they are putting the focus more on all of this live service content if there's no players who is playing this. And this feels incredibly tone deaf at a time where the Stop Killing Games campaign is getting a massive second push. Like we were stuck at like I think 400,000-ish signatures for the longest time, but due to some drama and other big YouTubers, basically advertising this campaign, there's now a massive second wind of this campaign, and people are starting to like finally wake up and realize like, hey, wait a minute, we actually want to keep our games. So as you can see, the EU initiative currently has like almost 800,000 signatures at this point. The UK initiative is actually almost done. It's almost at like 85k signatures. So to now come out at a time where there's such a massive second push of players who are outright saying like, hey, we want offline games. We want people, we want to be able to play games in the long term, to now come out and say like, actually, like for TDU to come out and say, yeah, actually, this doesn't matter to us enough. So we're putting it at the very end of our like development cycle is so incredibly tone deaf. And one thing I also just want to point this out, I don't trust them on this at all. I don't trust them at all that this is important enough that after they're completely done with their entire like content roadmap, that they're still gonna make the offline mode. This feels like the trust me bro of gaming. Just trust me bro of gaming. And I do not trust them at all on this. If offline was really important to them, and if they even gave a modicum of a crap about you as players, they would make this their first priority. And with this letter, they showed that they clearly don't. They don't care. And as long as they don't care about this, I'm just not gonna play the game. So back then, when the game came out, I refunded it because I was really unhappy and because half the time the game didn't fucking work because of the servers. As long as they don't make this their number one priority, I am not gonna buy their game again. And in fact, I'm gonna tell all of you guys to not get the game either. Although, to be honest, I think most of you guys who are watching this who also aren't playing the game, I probably don't even have to tell you this. But it just feels so crazy tone deaf. And I just had to talk about this. I cannot believe that there still is so little clarity going on at the studio, that they're still so hell-bent on trying to save their dying live service. But they don't understand the importance of the offline mode, especially in current times where this is getting more and more important for players. It's speechless. It just leaves you speechless. So yeah, TDU Solar Crown, will the game ever get saved? I think at this point, for me this I think was the last nail in the wall. I think for me this really like cemented they don't care. And I don't think they will ever realize what actually needs to happen to improve the game in the first place. Because like for me the thing is like offline mode is like the foundation. Like there's other stuff they need to do to improve the game, but offline mode is the bare foundation. And they're trying to build a bunch of stuff without the foundation. It makes no sense. It's like the very first thing they should take care of, even if it means there's no content for like a couple months. That's fine. No one's playing the game anyways. No one is missing out. I just like to talk about this. This kind of stuff really annoys me. And I also wanted to use the opportunity to once again shout out the Stop Killing Games campaign. I'll put links to both the EU and the UK initiative in the description. Keep in mind, you only need to be an EU citizen to sign it. So if you are currently not in Europe, like you live somewhere else, but you do have an EU citizenship, you can still sign it. So if you haven't done that yet, go do it. We're actually getting really close to hitting the goals, so make sure to do it if you haven't already. That's it for TDU Solar Crown. If they come out and say some wild shit again, I might make another video on it. But yeah, this was crazy. I had to talk about this. TDU Solar Crown situation is crazy. I'm not gonna title the video like this, but if I was a most critical clone, I probably would. Anyways, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and until next time, I don't really upload to the second channel anymore. Maybe I'll do it a little bit more often. Until next time, take care.